Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the BIS podcast. It has been a little while since I've done one of these, but I did have some internet issues that didn't allow me to record, so that's why you hadn't seen some of them, but I fixed all of those, so now I can be doing a few more podcasts again, which is great, because I really enjoyed doing them. I do have some cool plans in store for a few more kind of podcasts. That'll be with some guests that we've had on before, as well as possibly multiple guests per episode, and even a few new people on the show as well, so be sure to stay tuned for that. It'll be exciting stuff to come. Don't worry though, you'll be seeing more BIS podcasts soon. So today, like we normally do, we're going to talk about 3 mocks, we're going to answer some audience questions, and we're going to have just a good time talking. But we can't do that without our guest today. So, we've had him on a few times before, but man, I'm glad to do so because I always enjoy chatting with him, and someone who has a deep passion for Lego, so they're very easy to talk to. Yes, they're a repeat offender, but like I said, stay tuned because we're going to get some new guests in the future, but we're always happy to talk to older ones. So, some facts about the man before we start. Did you know that this man is faster than a speeding bullet? He's actually more powerful than a locomotive. He's able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Mitch Henry. How you doing, Mitch?
Good. I appreciate the introduction.
That's good. That's good. What you been up to recently?
Just general school stuff. Been building more mocks. I just opened up made a Twitter account and been posting.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I've been posting mocks and some work in progress shots there. So
how is it posting on Twitter? Because I've had a few people who've been like, oh, you should get a Twitter, and I've been like, I don't know. That's kind of the one place I don't really have any social media. Is it? Has it been good there?
Yeah, it's kind of slow in general, but what I like about the format of Twitter is that it really allows for just getting quick information out. I mean, when you have like a brand like say this, it's very convenient to like, okay, this is what I'm planning on. This is like what, just little updates. I get you. It's okay. Really, really intuitive and easy to use. So
okay. I mean, I'm happy to have a look into it, especially because I know so many of the sort of like Indonesian mockists are on like exclusively Twitter, and I've had a couple of their mocks on the show before, and I'm always like, oh my god, these are so good. And it's like they don't post anywhere else, and it's kind of like, I should really look into Twitter more. Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome.
Well, there's a lot of, like you said, Indonesians, a lot of the Japanese post there too, and like you said, like just exclusively there. So, and like you said, they post these crazy, they're always like these giant humanoids, and like you wonder how they stand and like the techniques they're using. It's ridiculous. Yeah,
and it's even the case that like a lot of the times you'll see them at conventions or something, and so it's kind of like all of them together, all posting that sort of stuff, all bringing that sort of stuff, and it's like, man, it's not even just like one guy, it's like 80 of them, and they're all doing incredible stuff, and it's like, how have I not seen this before? Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, they're cool.
So, do we want to jump straight on in, because we kind of had the little surprise theme when we were picking the mocks for this episode. Do you want to start talking about some of those?
Yeah, sure. Anyone you want to start with?
I'm not too fussed. Do you want to start with, can we start with Red's one?
Oh, yeah, sure. Love that one.
Cool. So, surprise theme for this episode is Galador, because as we were picking, we were like, all of our mocks have Galador in them, so that's awesome. But the first one that we have today, I'll say this because the other two have very difficult, okay, your one has a difficult name to pronounce, but this one's pretty easy. This one's by Red, and it's Mr. Robert Robotison. So what made you pick this one, buddy?
I think it's like kind of a lot of how I like to build my own mocks. It's just very simple approach, or just simple techniques, but there's still a lot of personality to the character. Yeah. I like the general proportions of it, which is another thing I like doing, is that like he's got these really long and lanky, thin proportions with his big hands, his big eyes, and like those thick eyebrows. He's kind of got that lonely look in his eyes as he looks down at the little paper airplane. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like the color scheme a lot. Just the almost monochrome, the dark red and the black and old gray, and then you got this nice bright splash of blue, the azure boat studs for the eyes. So it's just very simplistic, but it really grabs your attention.
Yeah, when I was looking at this for the first time, I agree with you. There's so much personality behind it. It's incredible how much those boat studs and then just the sort of the smoother slopes there can create, like you were saying, that expression of kind of loneliness or kind of uncertainty or something. And especially too, I love that he has included that paper aeroplane, because it's funny. I've seen it on like a few mocks, but very few, where people will include little props like this, whether they're Lego or not, to kind of to communicate something or to tell a story. And I love it when people do that, because it does so much for the mock. And yeah, like, it surprises me that we don't see that too much. And so I'm really glad he did that. I almost didn't see it in the picture. It's a little hard to see against the background, but I love that he put that there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of like saying less with words and more with the photo. And I think even this one, it has just a very short description. Yeah, it just says your friendly neighborhood robot. It's like, you don't need to, and I've said this before, right? You don't need to expound just more and more information when you can show it all. And I think that makes a mock stand out that much more if you can look at it and know everything.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's also kind of cool, because I know a lot of real life artists who that's their career, whether they do like photography or paintings and stuff. A lot of them play in those areas of kind of ambiguity, where it's kind of like, for example, you see a picture that someone's taken, and you can kind of see the relationship between two of the people in the photo, and you're kind of like, well, something's going on there, and you can kind of see little hints that have been placed around the photo that kind of make you think of something. And then you talk to someone else about it, and they're like, oh, this is a beautiful picture between a loving family, and you're like, what? No, they clearly hate each other. What are you talking about? And like, there's all these subtle messages in there that aren't directly saying one thing, but two people will see like two completely different things, but they're both like adamant about that. And I love seeing that in real life art, because it I don't know, it makes you kind of get your own message out of it, makes you learn something from it, and it makes you kind of engage with it in a fun way. And I think Red's doing that with this mock, which is beautiful, because especially too, like you said in the description, it's your friendly neighborhood robo, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, he's a friendly neighborhood robo? He looks so lonely. Like, I'm sure he is friendly, but he has no friends. Like, he's playing by himself. Like, what's going on? And I don't know, like, I'm getting this beautiful story and this beautiful sense of a character behind it, which is always so unique and awesome when you see that on a mock. And yeah, I think Red's done a phenomenal job on that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think Red might be, and I've like no exaggeration, I think Red might be the best in the community right now. I think, as far as just like, I think as far as like techniques and character building and just everything makes, you can just scroll through his photo stream. It's just, everything is these gorgeous, almost works of art.
No, you're right. Yeah. That's also a bold statement by Mitch Henry, but yeah, no, man, I can definitely see a reason behind that. That's awesome. Yeah, no, he is very, very good at what he does. I just kind of realized how he's done the posing on the eyebrows. That's really cool. I don't know if you can see it, but just behind the blue eyes, he's used those new. It's a sort of slightly newer piece. It's like a 1x1 plate, and then there's a handle coming out of it. And so then he's used those inverted slopes and then attached it that way. So it's just got like a little 1x1 clip coming off of the handle part. I don't know, I just think that's a clever way of connecting that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that 1x1 with a bar clip coming off of it. I love that piece.
Oh yeah. I just did a I don't know when I'm gonna have this podcast up, but I did a review of a set that came out recently, the Venom mech with the Spider-Man mech as well. Mm-hmm. It comes with like 14 of those in it, and as I was reviewing the set, I was like, oh, this is the best.
Oh, I only have 2 of them. I want so many.
Oh, wow, yeah. I recently bought a few poly bags, like the sand green Ninjago dragon. There's like a tiny one in a poly bag, and I had like 4 in it, and there were a couple others that I kept getting those pieces in it, and I'm like, this is good. These are poly bags. They're like cheap sets, but I'm getting heaps of these in it. Yeah, they're a great part. And again, a system part, perfect for Bionicle. It's great. Mm-hmm. And speaking of using things that aren't Bionicle on a mock, I love how he's implemented all the Galador pieces on this, and especially the fact that the entire arms and the entire legs, for the most part, are just purely those Galador pieces from, is it Omni or Gorm? Did I get that right?
I think it's Uni, Ooni.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's an interesting set.
Yes.
That set comes with no instructions.
I know. Because I bought that set off of someone in at my local lug, and I opened it and was building it on one of our lug meetings, and I was blown away because I opened it up and I was like, oh, there's no instructions. Is that a staple to all Galador sets? Because I only have him and Jen's, and I'm pretty sure Jen's didn't come with instructions either. Is that a thing with Galador? Did they just not put instructions in the sets?
I'm not too sure. I didn't I wasn't into it when it was out, but I think what I heard was Uni was the only one to not come with instructions, and that was because it
Oh.
was meant to be more of a like build whatever you want parts pack,
Oh,
and not
okay.
really a because it wasn't a creature that was in the show itself. It was just like
Oh.
here's assorted pieces because most of the sets came with very few pieces, and they wanted you to be able to
Yeah.
build things with the system. So they made this creature that never really showed up in the series, and then it was like just build whatever you want.
Okay. That does make sense. Okay, yeah. Because I think even the box had multiple characters on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that they named him and didn't necessarily promote it as a set like that. Oh, okay. Well, that's at least interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Have you watched the show, the Galador show?
I watched a little bit of it right after Brick Fair 2018 because I met with
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Ewald, and he's the
Yes.
coolest guy. But I was watching the show for a little bit, and it's kind of charming. I mean, it's
Okay.
definitely very dated 2000s
Sure.
kids show, but like I mean, you can tell that the main characters are all having a good time doing it. The script is better than I expected for a just a kind of silly kid show, and like
Okay.
the two main characters, Nick and Allegra, they have like surprisingly good chemistry as far as like their how their comedic timing and how they play off of each other. They're really natural. So
Oh, cool.
it's
Okay.
very goofy, but I think it's charming.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, that alone, what you just said about Galador makes me like way more excited to watch it than I had been in the past. Just because I don't know, I assumed it would be dated or just kind of cringeworthy or something. I don't know. But no, I mean that alone, yeah, I'm keen to watch it because I'm pretty sure it is just free on YouTube, so it's easy to watch.
Oh yeah, for now, and
True.
YouTube copyright system is so easily abused, but
True. Yeah. Still though, yeah, I might give it a little bit of a watch. But back to the mock. I was reading something in the comments where Red was saying because someone asked, "Oh, where are those Galador pieces from?" And he said, "Oh, it's from this guy." And da da da. And he said, "It's actually pretty boring using these parts, but they look nice." I don't know. I found that interesting that he was saying he's kind of like, I kind of would rather do something else, but I don't know. I still think it looks so organic and like how nicely those parts flow into the Rakshi head and all flow into the Vakama masks on the shoulders there. Yeah, it's beautiful.
oh yeah, absolutely. It's like you said, it's just very natural. It suits that kind of stick look that everything has, and I really like the kind of the earthy, rustish color that it has. I think it's suitable for this little sad robot character.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? It kind of looks very. It's a weird reference, but I think it was a. I don't know. I don't think it was a Pixar movie. It was an older movie called. I'm pretty sure it was called Robots. Like the main character was this blue
And
robot,
I know what you're talking about. I thought the
and
same
then
thing.
yeah,
It's not
yeah, I can't
Pixar.
remember what that was.
It's Blue Sky. That was owned by Fox.
Ah, okay, okay, there you go. Just you saying that this dark red kind of almost rustic color scheme is very robotic, and it just reminded me of that movie. But yeah, like yeah, that's so interesting. I never would have looked at dark red like that and gone like perfect for a robot, but seeing it here, it is. It's yeah, especially saying rustic like it is. Yeah, that's really cool. Wow.
Yeah, I mean he knows what he's doing. Clearly.
He does know what he's doing. That's right. That's definitely true. I do love the hands as well. Kind of like you were saying before, just like this kind of big hand aesthetic, and even kind of playing a little bit with the proportions, like the fact that his hands are a little bit longer and his arms are a little bit longer and his hands are a little bit bigger than they normally would be on a typical human proportioned character. Again, I think that adds to his charm a lot, and I really like that. And I think there are times that people can be a little kind of what's the word? Kind of like one track minded with proportions, like it has to be correct, and if you're slightly off, like no, you got to fix that and stuff. But I always like seeing mocks where people do play with that. I don't think you always need to follow those proportion things because, like we see here, it adds so much to the character and adds so much to the mock. It's great.
Oh yeah, I agree. I really dislike working in normal human proportions when doing a humanoid character. And I don't know, maybe I don't think it's because I find it difficult, although that can be challenging too. It's more that you can do a lot with, like I said earlier, without showing personality through the build. When you exaggerate proportions, it's easier to show those kinds of personalities that you want. Like if you see a mock that's like a humanoid, but he's normal human proportions, and you say he's supposed to be like a bruiser fighter type character, it's not going to be as strong as if maybe you had made him like really broad chested and like really, really gigantic arms and big hands and like maybe like a smaller head and shorter, stubbier legs. Like that kind of proportions, that will, I think, make a stronger impact and give you the character that you want to show better than just a more standard, normal looking human.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of like caricatures to some degree, how when you draw them, you accent kind of the parts of the body that sort of showcase the character best. And caricatures to some degree are much more over the top and can be kind of goofy to some degree. But I think in kind of the visual medium of Bionicle or Lego, which is a very like, character-centric building system, I think doing that is actually quite important for like you said, to communicate that character and all that. And yeah, like sticking to normal human proportions can limit you there. Like obviously, you can very effectively still show a bruiser type character with normal human proportions. But yeah, for sure, you can get a more dynamic, cool looking character if you do play with those. So yeah, I think that's cool, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, like you said, Bionicle is, because it's so heavily rooted in character design. I feel like you'll do better if you apply rules of non-Lego based character design and just apply it to Lego mocks.
Yeah. Man, I almost want to do a character design like course at a college or university or something, just to, for the most part, you can kind of see what people do with like color scheme or like we were saying with like exaggerating certain parts of the body with characters. But it would be really like beneficial to study a little bit of that and then learn, the sort of secrets and tips and tricks behind that, and then apply it to your own stuff. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I actually found a PDF that was like, I want to say it was like 50 some pages on that, just with a quick Google search. I mean, I can send that to you.
Oh,
if you
right.
Want.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It was really, really helpful.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. Okay, cool. That sounds great. I will. Is that something I could share and put in the description?
I imagine. I'm not.
Cool.
It looked like it was someone's like university work, so I don't know if they uploaded it themselves or if someone else did. I imagine they did.
Sure. Okay.
So,
yeah. I mean, look, I'll put it in the description, and then if someone's like, "Hey, don't share my stuff," then by all means, I'll take it down. But yeah, cool. No, hopefully that's helpful for other people, because I will definitely be reading that. That sounds great.
Oh yeah, it was. I'd like to think I improved a lot after reading it. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there was thank you, sir. I've spoken about that in some system videos that I've done, but there's a guide for I'd spoken about it in some system episodes that I did. There's a guide for building like medieval villages that I did on that I read. It's on Eurobricks. It's by Durfel Carden, who in my opinion is the best castle builder online. And having read that guide that he did, which is, I mean, it's on Eurobricks, so you kind of scroll through it. It's not really any pages, but it's probably like maybe 15 pages long or something like that. But yeah, having read that a couple times, I like you said there, I want to think that I improved as a builder having done it. So it's always cool doing that, like finding sort of things like that to study and then having learned something as a result. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I can't add much to that because I don't know Castle very well.
Sure.
So, like, I see a system castle and it's like, oh, it's another castle. It's got walls. It's got grass. I don't know.
Yeah, we were talking about this at one point. It's so interesting how the two mediums of like Bionicle or system, how, I don't know, logically in my mind, I think that the two are, because they're both Lego, that the same sort of principles you can apply to it, or that it's more or less the same thing. But no, it is the case that they are so vastly different, and like that, a person who only exclusively builds in one can be quite overwhelmed. Maybe isn't the right word, but like you said, like, oh, it's got walls, it's got grass, like okay. It can be a bit more difficult to understand, and that's why often, people who only exclusively build in one kind of, it's harder to take in those other kind of builds, I guess.
Yeah, I was talking with Anthony Wilson at Brick Fair. Again, I'm going to talk about Brick Fair. And there was we were walking past the castle displays, and he's a castle guy as well. And there was one that was like this single castle tower, kind of like what you might see in like the Rapunzel story. And then right next to it was this big elves castle, right? And Anthony was like looking at the single tower, and he was like, "Oh, that's a really good castle." And I said, "I kind of like this elves one more, like the colors and like the way it's kind of built around the theme of elves." And he said like, "Yeah, that one's interesting, but I don't like this wall here because it's just plain flat white bricks." And I was like,
"Yeah,
I wouldn't have even thought of that, you know." I couldn't even see that because I was too busy looking at like the purple and lavender and all the other things that just I wouldn't even think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always so interesting how that works. I often find that at conventions, and that's sometimes why I think conventions are so great as well, is because wow factor at conventions is always so important. And it's a thing of you can walk around a convention and be like, you know, if the convention has awards, you're like, okay, that's probably going to win an award, or that's probably going to, just because it's big, or it's visually impressive, or it has a wow factor. And I'll often find that at times, like, because I tend to look at things very kind of technically, like what techniques have they used, and, you know, what's sort of more unique about this, or stuff like that. And there's times that, not that I'm saying that conventions I've been to, the awards have been, you know, incorrect, or that like they should have been gone to something else or something like that. I often find that most awards at most conventions I go to are quite fair, but there are times that something will win and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm surprised at that, because yes, it has the wow factor and it's visually very impressive, but the techniques in it are quite simple. And for the most part, you could apply that to Bionicle as well. Like you could, I mean, heck, to some degree, you could even say that Red's mock is like that, because you could look at the arms and be like, oh, he's just used Galador parts. Like that's not that difficult technically, but yet the way we're talking about Red's mock, it is very technically impressive because he's captured personality better than probably about 80% of the mocks that I see. Not that that's not a insult or a critique to the other mocks that I've seen. Like most mocks I see, I always love. I absolutely love. But Red has this beautiful charm that is very difficult to capture, and takes a lot of skill to capture, I think. Yet it blows me away how much he does it with a more limited parts range, or simply using just a few pieces, or not necessarily like that. He just used the Galador pieces on the arms, kind of thing. Like he's not doing much, but yet he's doing so much with how little he's doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this Mr. Robert Robertson is just it's more impressive as a sum of its parts rather than like the individual pieces themselves.
Yes.
So
yes,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And that's because I had a few people who've messaged me, you know, all the time, who will sort of say like, oh, I'd love to see a BIS episode that kind of focuses on more like simplistic designs, because as awesome as that cool mock is, I can't build that good, or da-da-da. And I always find that interesting, like with this mock with Red, and then also with some other mocks we'll see in the episode later, how, you know, like you're saying, the individual parts aren't massively difficult, or, you know, would take years to build or plan out or think or whatever. It's actually very simplistic. It's actually not got too much going on per se, but the way that it's put together and the way that it's done is beautiful, or it's not using too many pieces. Like, I don't know, I'm always terrible at like guesstimating pieces in mocks, but there's probably no more than like 200 pieces in this, probably way less than that, and yet it's one of the most beautiful mocks I've seen. It's great. There's so much personality in it. It's awesome. Yeah, so I don't know, I always find it interesting that thing of some people being like, oh, I want to see stuff that's kind of easier for me to make with my current like skill level, I suppose. But yeah, you look at this and it doesn't use too many pieces. It's not that complex per se, but it's still brilliant. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's like you said, it's just very clean and simple. The most complex part is probably the head.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
And what a head it is.
But again, that's not to undermine. It is beautiful, exactly, and that's not to undermine what Red's done. Like, yes, the stuff's more simple, but it's not like it needs to be complex to be considered good. And that's not to undermine what other people have done either. It's like, you know, I've said it before, because this applies with both System and Bionicle. There are times that I've been to a convention, or I've seen something online, and I look at the comments, or I'll hear what people are saying, and they'll be like, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in the world. I absolutely love it. And I'll look at it, I'll be like, it is. It's beautiful. It's great. I love it. But I actually love this one more. Or, you know, I'll look at a mock and I'll read the comments, I'll see what people are saying, and they're like, I hate this. This is awful. It's terrible. It's poorly built, blah, blah, blah. And I'll look at it and be like, dude, are you joking? This is great. This has inspired me so much. I love it. Like, look what you've done here, and da-da-da-da-da. And so I always find that interesting, how subjective that can be. but also how even if a mock is more, I always find it weird saying this with art. If a mock is less good, whatever that means, I can look at stuff and still be like, well, actually, I really like how this mock visually looks in its overall like composition. Like I'll see a castle build and I'll be like, I love the way that you've laid this out. Like visually, it looks nice, and I want to copy that visual layout, but build the castle in my style, or or like this mock, you could sort of say the same thing of like, you could argue like, oh, I don't like this part of the mock, but visually, like these long arms, these long legs, and this sort of stylistic head with this personality on it is beautiful, and I want to do a similar thing on my mocks, and so I want to copy that kind of visual layout. And so I always think about that, like there's been a couple episodes of BIS in the past where people have been like, why did that mock get into BIS? Like, da-da-da. And I've been like, even if you don't like it technically, or you don't think it's as good as the others or whatever, you can still learn stuff from it. I think that depending on how you look at it, pretty much any mock, you can really, really learn something, like really good lessons from it, if you look hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Oh, I feel like we got on a bit of a tangent, but we're still kind of talking about Red's mock.
Yeah, we got it.
Is there anything else you want to say on this? I feel like we have actually pretty much covered it pretty good.
Yeah, there's a little bit. Back to the head, I really like this, just the part uses in general here I think are really nice. The way he's using all these different slopes to kind of lead into the kind of how flat the top of the head is, and then from there he's using the new Star Wars shoulder piece on the back of the head to lead down into its neck. And just like, there's all these nice, like you can kind of see where the gaps are, but they still flow so nicely, and like the way those little like wheel hub pieces kind of arch up to have a nice little cove for the eyebrows, so to speak.
Yes, yeah.
I like that a lot, and I really like how he's used the slope to create the mouth.
Yes. Do you know how that's connected? Because I was going to ask you that, because I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh, it's this. And then I was like, wait a minute, I have no idea what part that is.
Yeah, I was hoping you would know.
Oh, no.
I think, and don't quote me on this, because I don't know my system parts very well, but I think it's that one piece that it's about the size of a standard 1x2 brick, but you can put a little bendable thing in it, kind of like a little wedge. I don't know the piece number or name, but like it's like a hinge. It's like a hinge.
Yes. I'll put up a picture because that's what I thought it was as well, but because it does look like that. But the more I look at it, it almost seems like the part's kind of bending, as if it's like an illegal connection that's holding up that slope piece.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm sure when we put this podcast up, Red will be like, oh, it's this, and we'll be like, oh. But that's what I thought it was as well. Yeah, I was gonna guess that. I don't know though.
Yeah, I got no answer for you. I've been trying to figure it out ever since you posted it.
Yeah, well, Red's actually always lovely when I post his stuff. He always thanks me, which I always appreciate. So hopefully he will answer our question when we do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool how much that little like sort of slope piece, I don't quite know what you'd call it, but just how it slightly juts out and just sort of forms this little mouth there. Yeah, it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great mock all around. I guess to go back to the hands, the only other thing, this might be the last thing I can think of. I kind of like that. I mean, one, it works stylistically with the proportions, because he's got these kind of big ankles, big head, big shoulders, and now he's got these big hands. But I also like that he's kind of like, he's reaching out for this paper airplane, and he's kind of like hesitant to do it. And I like it because he's got these like really large hands, and it's almost like he's afraid to pick up something that's like delicate, like this paper airplane. I don't know. Yeah. There's something really cool about that contrast of him having these big hands and he doesn't want to grab it, but he kind of does. I don't know.
Yes, cool. Yeah. That is beautiful, isn't it? I do like that. Yeah. And I also like that he's used these rather old kind of arm pieces. I think some of these were used in sort of old, like kind of aquaratory style themes. But they kind of discontinued this part just because it was a bit more brittle and it would break a lot. So it's hard to, like, I have some in my collection, but they are broken just because that's the way they came when I got them. But I wish I had enough to be able to do this with hands or something, because it is a beautiful piece, but yeah, it is a little bit more brittle, which is a shame.
Yeah, I recently went through all my system stuff, and I had a bunch of them, and I think every single one of them snapped as I was organizing them. Yeah, it was yeah. Because I agree with you. I love them. They're really nice, and they have a really like a nice balance of like they'll hold the position you put them in, but they're really easy to move. But yeah,
Yes.
then
Yes.
then they break as soon as you try to pull them out, and it's especially the three-pronged ones. I find those snap the easiest.
Yeah, that's a shame.
But
Yeah, especially the fact that like the thumb on the hands that appears to be connected through kind of like mixel joint system stuff. So the fact that you could even like implement them into mixel joints, like that's exciting. But yeah, I'd be too scared to buy some and then try and play with them because I'd be scared I'd mess them up. But no, that's awesome. That's a great mock from Red. Awesome to see some more great stuff from him. Shall we move on to let's move on to your one.
I wanted to, okay, sure.
Yeah, sure.
So you said earlier it's kind of a difficult name to pronounce. I think it's just Gregory. So this one's called Gregory Petrov.
Cool.
Continuing with the Galador theme, this one uses the Gorm torso, which is an excellent piece. I love it. I've used it multiple times for my mocks. I don't know, where do you want me to start with it?
Well, one question I actually had since we're talking about that torso, I remember speaking to someone about Galador because someone was like, "Oh, why didn't it do so well? Why did it get discontinued?" And one reason that someone said is they're like the fact that a lot of the joints had the kind of hole connection that you then placed, like how all of the arms ended with the kind of pin connection, but like the torsos and stuff had the hole in it. It kind of made it difficult to implement with like already existing Technic or Bionicle pieces. So even though it was compatible with regular Lego, it was very difficult to be compatible with. And so I was like, how the heck did you connect the Hero Factory bones into that torso? Because the connection points, at least the way that my head is thinking of it, technically wouldn't add up. Because isn't it the hole on the end of that torso, and then it's a Hero Factory limb, so there's again the hole?
Yeah, so the Galador pieces, for anyone who doesn't have them, they use ratchet joints rather than ball and socket joints. So what is nice about them, though, is that compared to the Knight's Kingdom torsos, which also use ratchet joints, the Galador joints and the holes where they connect are much deeper than on a Knight's Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
So what you can do with that is, like, you can use a lot of Technic pin pieces that either have a axle built into them, or you can attach an axle to them, and then you can put those in the holes where the ratchet joints would normally go.
Okay.
And because the Galador pieces are pretty big, sometimes there's nothing behind those like pinholes in the Galador torso. So you could put an axle right through the shoulders of the Gorm torso. So this one is using a again, I don't know the name or number for it, but it's one of those Technic pins that has a axle hole built onto it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
An axle hole built onto it. You mean like the it's like a 3 long one, and then it has like room for you to put a stud on the end? Do you mean that one?
It's a 3 length, but it has like a bushing on the end of it.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the arms are connected with those that have ball joints put onto them.
Yep.
And then the legs, at the hips, it's connected with one of the newer, like the light blade axle pins. That's a 3 length, and 2 of the 3 length is a pin, and 1 of the length is an axle.
Yes, I love that part. Yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how that's connected, and it's the same. I think. Well, the last mock I used the Gorm torso with used the Gorm legs as well, and then I connected the shins with that same light gray axle pin.
Cool. Okay.
So if you want to start blending CCBS bones with Galador torsos, and I really recommend you do, then I find that's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. Okay, awesome. Yeah, because like you said, like how you really recommend doing it. Even I recommend doing it now because like the sort of seamless flow between everything on this is great, because I don't know, it surprises me how much that torso does fit into the look of CCBS kind of armor shells and stuff, because it has a very specific look to it. Like if I didn't know that was a Galador part, I would assume it's like a CCBS piece kind of thing. Yeah, I think it's beautiful, the flow that's created between that. So yeah, I'd love to see more people playing with that, putting in more Galador stuff with the CCBS and all that. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I was just kind of tossing parts together, and I wanted to use those big rounder CCBS add-ons, and I thought it happened to flow really nicely with the way that the torso just naturally like flows up around the shoulders. and then
Yes.
like it flows up and then it kind of rounds back down into the arms, and I thought that that had a really nice shape, so I wanted to kind of expand and keep working on this build, if for nothing else than to have that.
Yes, for sure. And it's cool too as well how what was the character that came with that torso again? I'm terrible with my Galador names. What was he called again? Sorry.
Gorm.
It was. I had that in my head. I thought it was wrong. The Gorm character is kind of, to some degree, he's a little bit more kind of, I guess, skinnier and kind of slim. Whereas the way that you've implemented this torso, especially with the shells that you were talking about and stuff, it fits perfectly for this sort of larger bruiser type character. So it's cool how you've kind of to a degree kind of reinvented how that torso works and looks. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. It's surprisingly like, I mean, it's a big piece, but for, like you said, Gorm being very tall and thin, it's kind of stubby like compared to the rest of him. So I think it just happened to work nicely with the rest of the limbs that I've chosen for it. So
Yeah, and then another thing that works really nicely with what you've chosen is the range trooper head on the top there. Like I always find it interesting when people do use those Star Wars Ultra Build heads, because there are times where people can make it look, very out of that character, but that's normally when they add things to it. Like I've seen people use like the Finn head, but then they kind of add a helmet to it or something, and so it kind of looks a lot less like Finn. But then there's times people will just like straight up use like the Obi-Wan Kenobi head or the Luke head or something, and you can still, it still kind of looks like Luke. But I don't know, I keep not seeing a range trooper helmet on this. It just looks much more like a bruiser character with a cool looking helmet. So it's cool how well that, I don't know, again, it's not that you've necessarily done anything to make it look that way, but I think the choice of that helmet on this specific character is a lot more unique, and it there's, at least to me, I'm not really seeing any visual confusion of like, you just put a range trooper helmet on top of it. Like it looks more unique, which is great.
yeah, it was kind of an odd choice. What I liked about the range trooper helmet is that it's not, because it's such a new design to Star Wars. It's not quite in everybody's head, like say the classic stormtrooper helmet or even the clone trooper helmet. It's very like, when you see it in the movie, well, I assume I haven't seen Solo, but when you see that design, it fits as a stormtrooper helmet. But if you remove it from the context of Star Wars, it works as its own thing. And I wanted
For sure.
one nice like heavy white helmet to match like the white gloves and the white boots. So
Yeah.
it just happened to be like the best part on hand, because I didn't really want to over design the head, because a lot of this is just pretty basic techniques, a lot of CCBS and just big parts in general.
Yeah.
And like you said with the Obi-Wan head and the Luke head, I have a hard time using the Star Wars heads because, like you said, they're very identifiable as Star Wars characters, but I like using the human heads more, because when you see like a Darth Vader mask used as a head, you like use the way it's supposed to be used. I mean, you kind of know who that is. Like, you're not going to be able to separate a Stormtrooper helmet or a Darth Vader mask from those characters. But if you look at someone like the Obi-Wan head, which I've used on this mock as well, then you can kind of remove that, because it's just a human head, I like using those, and the Range Trooper helmet just happened to be like the one helmet that I own that wasn't immediately identifiable as a Star Wars character.
Yes, for sure. And something else I like about it too is how you were saying before, you could have gone with a more kind of complex, like custom built head that you could have done that so that it's less recognizable. But I don't think that would have looked anywhere near as good, because I think the charm with this mock is the fact that you've just purely used the Galador torso and then implemented it with CCBS parts and stuff like that. Like the fact that it is more simplistic, but these combinations of pieces look like visually beautiful. I think that's where the charm is in the mock. And so I'm almost glad that you didn't go with a custom head on it, because I just don't think it would have worked.
Yeah, the other comment I got regarding the Range Trooper head is that someone said it looked kind of like an Ushanka, which made sense for like a Russian character. And
Okay.
I can't take credit for that. I'm not nearly that clever. So that was more of a happy accident. And then I think
Awesome.
the other happy accident comment I got regarding the head was that someone said it was fitting to use the Obi-Wan head for a character named Gregory, since, as you might know, the actor for Obi-Wan is Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
And I also can't take credit for that. I'm not nearly that clever.
But see, that's the thing with art. Like most of the best stuff does come from happy accidents. So you take pride in the fact you had those happy accidents. That's where the best stuff comes from. So that's awesome. That's great. One thing I also love is his big gun, because it looks cool, but also the kind of ammo chain that you made using these friction joints. That looks great. But have you tried separating those since? Because I remember doing that. I'm like, what happens if I put two friction joints together? And I was like, I can't take them apart. I did eventually, but it was really difficult. I take it you haven't tried that yet, or?
Yeah, the whole gun with the ammo chain belt, that actually came from a mock that I saw at Brick Fair.
Oh, cool.
He has like kind of a similar character, but it's more of like a Technic and CCBS built thing.
Okay.
And it's actually able to hold the thing properly, not just in front of it. He can actually hold it like facing forward, which I was not able to figure out. But regarding the chain belt with the extensions, yeah, I can take them apart. I don't find it that difficult, but it's really hard when you get to just two of them.
Okay. I suppose that makes sense.
I think older versions, they didn't have the rounded edges, and so those were even harder. Because I remember...
See, I did mine with like the first set that came with them, whatever that. I think that was like Stormer or something, yeah. So that was probably why. But okay, interesting that they've at least improved upon that. That's good to hear.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I do remember when they first came out that I think Gringat on mock pages, he made a post saying like, don't ever put them together because they'll never come apart. And I did not do that until I think I made this mock. It was like, it was the best solution, and I was like, well, I'm going to try it, and it's difficult. I don't think it's impossible.
Sure, yeah. That's all right. Okay, cool. Oh, drop the minifigure. I also love, too, how the color like blocking on this mock with the kind of the lower legs and the lower arms and then the helmet all being white, and also the way that you've kind of contained them in that manner, like especially with the legs, how I don't know, it's almost sort of wrapping itself around the black, kind of being its own contained like boot, and then the black kind of just nicely kind of transitions out of that. I think that's I think that looks really cool. Like there's very smooth transitions between the colors. It's nice to see.
Yeah, that's a thing I like doing, or I like at least trying to do with my mocks, is like the lower limbs always have the same colors, and generally the heads have the same colors. And
cool.
then those colors will generally be like the top layer of the character. So like if you look at this, like the lowest layer is the purple, which is then like covered with black, and then that's covered with the white. So it's a cohesive layering all around. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I got a lot of comments regarding the shins.
The shins, okay.
The people in general saying how they seem to flow pretty nicely. Like the rest of it, it's not all that complicated. They're probably the most complicated of the whole thing. But because the Bionicle shoulders are not officially connected to anything. They wrap around like one of those Y sockets that has an axle going down to the ankle, and then the shell at the very bottom is connected to a ball joint on that axle, and then in the actual socket itself, there's like some Technicams that make there's like an extra joint in the knees, and then the Bionicle shins kind of fit around that, and then there's just a rubber band that holds the Bionicle shins in place. Oh
right, okay, yes, I see the rubber band now. Okay.
Yeah, and then the CCBS armor add-on, there's a clip that's hiding behind the Bionicle shoulders, and then when you clip the armor add-on, it just frictions itself into place, and it's much sturdier than it looks.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool.
So it's
is that that white piece on the front there? I don't quite know what you would call that, but it was on the Range Trooper figure. Is that sort of holding it together as well, or is it more the rubber band that's kind of doing the work?
The rubber band is mostly what's holding them together, and the shell, actually the CCBS shell at the bottom, kind of wraps around that little nub on the bottom of the Bionicle shoulder that kind of holds them in place on the actual limb they're supposed to be on. The shell kind of wraps around those little nubs, so if anything, the shell holds them in place more than the Range Trooper add-on.
Ah, cool. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. I always do like that though. When I know some people might be like, "That's illegal. You haven't connected it," but I just find illegal such a weird term because, like, for me, illegal is when the parts have stress on them, But then there's times where like that, like a technique is considered illegal, but I'm like, oh, but there's not necessarily any stress on it or whatever, and so I never know what to say when I use that term because it's so, I don't know, you can say it for multiple things, but I like that it's not connected, but it's still holding itself together just through like friction and stuff, and that that you've used rubber bands to hold it together because I mean Lego uses rubber bands, and I don't see anything wrong with that personally, but no, I like that. I like seeing designs like that, especially too when you get a result like that so beautifully transitions from the white into the black. I think that looks great.
Yeah, appreciate it.
No worries.
I remember I got some advice from my good friend Marco, and he had told me like regarding the subject of nice part use, and he had said like if you look at something with the intention of wanting a nice part use, you'll probably fail because you're designing specifically around that. But if you just look at something and say, oh, this is it will give me the shape that I need, or it will give me just the look that I need in general, and then you design around that, then you'll probably get that nice part use that you want to hear because you're not thinking about it as a nice part use. You're just thinking about it as how do I need it.
Yeah,
and
100%.
So when you think like that, you can find a lot of what people might call illegal techniques, but they end up working very well because they're being used for what they need to be used for.
For sure, yeah. I had a question that came up when we get to the Q&A bit. It's not actually in this episode. I was going to answer it on BIS for the fans in future because it was more geared towards me, but I'll kind of bring it up now. Basically, the question was like, how do you get your ideas? And this wasn't how I was going to answer it when I eventually did answer it, but you saying that kind of sparked something else in me, was that there are times that I'll be like on the train going to class or something, and normally when I am, that's pretty much when I get a lot of ideas, or if I'm not reading, because I'm normally reading on the train. But there was one time where I'd forgotten to bring a book, and I was like, okay, I'll just sit and I'll come up with some ideas for whatever I was working on at the time. But I'd made it in my head of like, because I was kind of like a little disappointed because I was really excited to read, and I was like, I forgot a book. I'm like, damn. And so I was very like determined of like, I'm going to make this idea session like the best I've ever had, and I'm going to leave and I'm going to have 70 ideas. It's going to be great. And the whole train ride, like, nothing was coming, and I was just like, but it was because I was making it such a big deal of like, you have to come up with good stuff and it has to be amazing, and then once I'd arrived quite early, and so I was like, okay, Ben, you're doing this wrong. Time to just let go, and like, I want you to come up with no ideas. I don't want any ideas. Just have a think. And then I got like 70 ideas, and it was a really good idea session. But it was only at the point when I'd surrendered to the idea of not trying to force a poo out, basically, that I got the ideas. And so I 100% agree with Marco on that. It's like you were saying too, of like the happy accidents that happened with like the helmet and the name and stuff. It's because you weren't trying. It's the Yoda thing of do or do not, there is no try. If you try to get a nice piece use, or you try to be creative or come up with something, you won't. It's like that with the guy saying like, where do you get your good ideas from? I don't. They just come to me. I'm not trying to get them. I just am suddenly like, I'm going to build a castle with a demon on it. Let's go. Yeah. It's like I find that question so hard to answer because it's like I don't have a process with that. I just kind of get it. It just comes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't know how to add to that, but
it's okay. But yeah, awesome mock named Gregory. His name was a lot easier to pronounce than I thought it would be.
Oh yeah, that's probably the last thing about this was the actual name itself. I was looking at the I think the term is entomology of the name, because originally I wanted something kind of goofier, like I don't know, something like Torque Hard Base, or just something really overly goofy, manly. And then as it moved on, just kind of started building itself, I thought maybe it would be better to have a name that kind of had like a real meaning to it. So I was looking at like behindthename.com and seeing like what these names actually are supposed to mean. And if I remember correctly, like the etymology of the name would be like Gregory is like a watcher or a guard, and then Petrov is like stone. So it was like the name. If you knew the meanings of the name, you would know that he's kind of this like strong, steadfast guardian type character. So the name is also telling you who he is.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. Okay, awesome. It's interesting. Yeah, I've had a few people who've said like, what the heck do I do for a name? And normally, yeah, I'll just, I don't know, like go on like a translator website and be like, what is water in Latin? Oh, okay, I'll somehow adapt that to a name. But that's cool. That's cool how the name can also kind of inform that as well, in terms of what the character is and kind of just continuing along the trope that you're aiming for or something. That is really cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I would agree that naming mocks is the hardest part of it.
Oh yeah.
I struggle with names, so I was in luck when I just decided to use like a human head, and I wanted to make him an actual human character, because then I could actually look at, like I said, the etymology of the names and make something like that. But when you're doing like fantasy characters or robots, and it's like you have to come up with names for them, it loses me.
Yeah. It's interesting that Bionicle, because Bionicle had such sort of more iconic names, whereas like Hero Factory was very, I mean, they had pretty iconic names too. That's not quite the word I meant, but more how Hero Factory had like Natalie Breeze or Mark Surge, or like they had the human name and then the kind of code name. It's interesting that the Bionicle didn't do that, and that Hero Factory did. I thought I would go further with that thought, but that's as far as that went.
Yeah. With Bionicle, because it was like those early years, they were using real words from Maori nations, and then when they got that lawsuit, they had to start changing them, and you can kind of tell from like 2005 onward, like they were kind of running out of ideas of what they were going to name them, and I think they hit their lowest point when they made Axon and Brutaka, but a lot of those names are just very like, for Bionicle, in Bionicle, they're just very like edgy, but like not in the good kind, I think.
Right.
And then you get to the Hero Factory names, and they're a bit more generic, like you said, like kind of like Mark and Natalie and Preston. And then like even the villains are like Fire Lord and like Toxic Reaper, right? And but like that suits the tone of that series much more, because like you look at Bionicle and it's taking itself pretty seriously. Yes. And then you look at Hero Factory and it's not taking itself seriously at all.
Yes,
so,
for sure.
Like that juxtaposition, like they suit the kind of the tone of the series, but I kind of think Hero Factory did a little better, because where Bionicle started out kind of strong with the names, I think it ended poorly, and then Hero Factory stayed kind of consistent throughout.
That makes sense. You want to know something that is literally, like, I don't know how it never dawned on me, but that is literally the first time I realized that Axon and Brutaka are like Axe and Brute. I don't know how that never hit me. But wow.
As big of a fan, like a die-hard apologist fan of Bionicle, even in 2006, I hated those names.
Oh, really?
Oh, they're so stupid.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Cool. Okay, well, yes, that changes so much. I was always like, yeah, those are great names. Wow. I mean, they're still cool names. I don't necessarily have any qualms with it, but like just the fact that it literally has Axe and Brute in it, I'm like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know how I never saw that.
It's not very clever.
Right. Wow. Interesting. Speaking of names, that's my transition, and I'm sticking with it. Let's move on to the next mock, which is Tora by Matilda.
I believe it's the other way around.
It's Tora. It's Matilda by Tora. Dang it.
All right. Do you want to start with this? Do you want me to start? What do you want?
I mean, I did pick this one, so I suppose I'll start. One thing that immediately grabbed me that I quite like is the kind of stocking/dress design that this mock has, because it uses these basketball hoop pieces, and then it uses these funky... They're from a Hobbit set, I'm almost certain they are. They're like spider web pieces that you would, like, the kind of gimmick was like you put little minifigures in them so it looks like the spider's like encased it in web. And so they've used these as, like the kind of stockings or like kind of undergarments or something. I love that. I think it's really cool using those two pieces together like that. It just flows very nicely and looks great. And yes, we were talking about Galador before, and there's this Galador piece being used here for the head. Because like I said, I only have a couple Galador pieces. What is this Galador piece? Is it like a waist piece? That's what I thought it was, but I'm not like 100% sure.
So I don't actually know how that piece was made, how that was intended to be used. I don't have that one either. I believe it has 4 like ratchet joints in it. It's like the bottom one connects into something, and then it's like a hub for like 4 more.
Oh, okay.
I think it comes in uni and a couple other ones, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't know why it has this little lip in it, but I love how he's used it.
Yes. Again, it's another personality thing. Like it's like she has a big kind of nose or something. It's very
Yeah,
cool. It does a lot. It's a very clever part use. It's cool.
yeah. I thought it was like kind of like a mouth. Like she's kind of like this little alien with like a, I don't know, it's a little frog mouth.
Oh yeah, like it's a big lip or something. Yeah, I see what you mean. I like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure.
cool. You're not sure of what? Sorry.
I'm not sure just what it, if it's supposed to be a nose or if it's supposed to be lips. Because I
Oh
thought it was
yeah.
lips, and then you said nose, and like, oh, I guess that I see it too.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I kind of like that it's sort of up in the air as to what exactly it is because it's because either work. It could be a nose, it could be a mouth. Both fine. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, there's a lot I like about it really, but I love how so much of this mock is just using those dish pieces. Like kind of how the sort of bottom of the dress is those dishes, and then all of the waist is just the dishes stacked on top of each other. I always like it when people do that, when they kind of repeat the same part to kind of get that effect, because there is that kind of unity created with the pieces, but also just you could literally go on Bricklink and order a bunch of like 1 or 2 part and then make a mock kind of almost exclusively using those pieces to some degree. So I think that's like a really sort of smart, like ergonomical way of approaching a mock, as well as just it looks really nice.
And I agree, and I really like how Tora has used the dishes to just kind of like friction them on.
Yeah.
Using 2 dishes to clip onto the larger dish, and he's using that all around the bottom of the dress leading into the basketball hoops.
Yeah. I don't know how. Like, I imagine that might be a little bit more fragile, but I don't think that, like, I mean, it's not a problem if it is, because, I mean, there's nothing wrong at all with building a mock that is a little bit more fragile like that, because it still looks really nice, like we were saying. Yeah, no, I like it.
I like, you were mentioning the basketball hoops earlier. I kind of like how and similar to the dishes, I like how he's repeated the texture of the basketball hoops on the hat, and then used the dish to kind of bring the hat in also with the rest of the dress. So there's more of this cohesion throughout the whole outfit that she's wearing.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And two, just, I don't know, the look of the hat is very kind of, I mean, it's a pretty famous horse race. I'm going to assume you know what it is. The Melbourne Cup.
I don't, but okay. I have an idea.
Yeah, it's basic, like, it's like the horse race of the year. It's the race that stops, I'm pretty sure it's the race that stops the world or the race that stops Australia. I don't know. I don't support it because there's a lot of animal abuse that happens in it, and I don't agree with that. But the kind of costumes and things that people wear, I'll put up images and stuff. The hat kind of looks very much like that. Like, people will wear these very ornate kind of like cloth hats and things that do like kind of crazy things. It's almost like they're wearing some kind of weird sculpture on the top of their head. I don't know, it kind of reminds me of that to some degree, but it also just looks like kind of like a really fancy looking hat or something. And like you said, the fact that texture is also on the kind of basketball hoops down here, yeah, it's a nice way to tie it together, and it kind of makes her look a little bit more kind of like ritzy and upper class as well, which I think is really interesting and quite cool.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I might be wrong, but I think they call that kind of hat like a derby hat.
Okay. I'm sure you're correct. I have no idea, but I'm sure you're correct.
Okay. Yeah, and like you're saying, it's kind of this high society. She's got this very like cutesy appearance, and the kind of frills. I agree. And I think the little flowers that are kind of underneath her hat really suits that look, pushes that a little bit further.
Yes, yeah. As I liked as well that like the head is obviously kind of more alien looking, kind of like how we were talking about like the kind of larger mouth or nose and the big eyes, and also the fact that because it could either be hair or it could even be her ears. How they've used the these kind of larger claw pieces and these dinosaur heads. I like the idea of this being a sort of upper class alien as well. Like, I quite like that.
Mm-hmm. I also, to me, because I was looking at it, I thought I like the idea that she's like an alien, or maybe she's like trying to blend in, and like, or she's like trying to be cutesy, but like obviously her being an alien is like not working.
Yes.
So I like that contrast too.
Yeah.
Just being kind of just this like gross alien head, and then this like really prim and proper dress.
Yes, nice. Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, it'd be fun to see like the counter mock to this, where it's like the same head and everything, but then it's like what she normally looks like, and then it's just this like big scary like tentacle monster or something. I think that'd be kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah. Another thing I like as well is just the upper arms, and even kind of how they flow into the lower arms as well. Of how simple that connection is, but how well it works. It's just the sort of axle connector, and then those two kind of clip pieces there. I love how, yeah, it doesn't need to be more than that, but it works very, very nicely.
Yeah, it's really nice for the scale that they're working at here, and the like. Again, going back to more exaggerated extreme proportions, I like the kind of like really really big head and then tiny little arms. Kind of gives that like little kid look that I think they're going for here.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, that's kind of most of the things I wanted to say on that. I like how it looks a lot, but I've pretty much covered most of the things I wanted to on that. Are you good as well, or?
The last thing I can think of, going back to the idea of like kind of an ugly alien like trying to be all cutesy. I like that her little shoulder bag, the strap is a chain, and I don't know if that's like just the parts that were available or if that's like an intentional design choice of like the character not quite getting that a chain is more of like a rugged thing rather than cutesy type thing. Like it's more to that personality of not fully understanding what she's doing. So
Yes.
I kind of I like that, whether that's intentional or not. That's how it reads to me, and I think it's a good choice.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it like that, but I love that thinking behind it. That's actually that's really cool. I like that. Yeah, that is awesome, isn't it? So that's our 3 mocks for the episode. Now let's move on to some audience questions. So these are submitted over Instagram. Normally, before I do the podcast, I put out a little message saying if you have any questions to send them my way. So if you want to ask a question in future, head on over to Instagram and chuck me a message, and that's how. Or ask them in the comments below. I really don't mind. Anyway, the first question we have is by Toa Peligea, and their first question is, how long does it take you to build a Bionicle mock? So Mitch, how long does it take you to build a Bionicle mock?
Generally, I'm a slower builder. Like I can like look at all my parts and be there for like hours and not have anything. But like it changes on the mock, because like I've built some mocks in like maybe a half hour at most, and then some have taken me weeks. And like you would see what I make, maybe like you'd think the small ones that I make are the ones that take 30 minutes, and they're the ones that take 2 weeks, and then the bigger ones are like an hour or something. I find that the way I work, I'll go for like maybe a month or a couple of weeks where I have absolutely no inspiration and I can't think of anything. And then I'll have like this boost of activity where I can make like 5 mocks. I mean, generally I can build something in like under a month, but that's probably the average amount of time it takes.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. I mean, to some degree, I think I'm quite similar with you in terms of there'll be times where it's not so much that I'm not as inspired or I don't have any ideas or anything like that necessarily, because I often will, but more I'll be... There might be some times where I'm just a bit busier, or it's just kind of like, I'd rather do this right now, or I'm busy watching this or reading this or something like that, and so I haven't built as much. And then there'll be some times where it's just like, boom, I make like heaps of things over a very short period of time, or that I'll sort of be working on something, one mock for a few weeks or da-da-da. But I tend to build quite quickly, actually. I mean, I just built 2 smaller system dioramas, and I think both of those maybe took me 2 days in total. And actually, I think one took me 1 day, and the other took me 2 days. But then, like, there's another system diorama I'm working on right now, and that's maybe taken me a week and a half, and I still haven't finished it, but that's because I need to like get specific pieces to finish it off. Or yeah, like my larger stuff maybe takes me like a couple months or something. So it depends on what I'm doing, but I do feel I do build quite quickly compared to some other people. But heck, like if you need to take ages, or you need to take like 2 minutes to build a mock, both work. There's nothing wrong with that. There are times I almost wish that I did take longer when I build, because I don't know, sometimes I'll finish a mock and I'll be like, oh, I really enjoyed that. I want to keep going, but I'm done now. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand. It's, I don't know how to explain this, like just with the kind of style that I work in, of just kind of keeping things small scale with like simpler techniques. I like to finish things as soon as possible. So I understand what you're saying, where like you kind of try to, sometimes maybe you post something that's like, oh, I should have worked on that maybe a little longer and maybe improve some things. But
yes.
And yeah, it's kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I get you on that too, yeah. But there are times I'll post something even if I'm not fully happy with it, because sometimes I want people to critique it, and then I go like, okay, I wasn't seeing that. Cool, let me fix this. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from for sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
The other thing that sometimes gets in the way, and this happens frequently, I'll be making something with kind of this vision in mind of like, okay, I'm gonna build this, and then I get to a point where it's not really going the way I want it to, but I like where it's going. So it's like that can sometimes make the build go quicker, or it can make it take longer. And it's like, like right now I have this like astronaut work in progress, and I
Sweet.
wanted to go for this kind of retro futurism look. But the more I was working on it, the more it started looking more like a modern, almost futuristic sci-fi spaceman type thing, kind of like a SpaceX
Cool. Yeah.
suit. So it's taken me longer to build this one because now I've changed my priorities, but I didn't want to try to force something that wasn't coming.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I often find that when I'm building, and I've spoken to a few other people who've said the same, where you'll have that vision originally, and then as you're building, and when you finish building, it's close, but it's not that vision that you originally had. Like the mock kind of has just evolved as you've built it, and it's become something else, but it's still in the spirit of that. But it's very, very rare that I build like 100% as my vision saw it. I quite often will change what I had in mind. And it's not even like a deliberate change. It's not kind of like, oh, I don't like that anymore, I'm changing it. It's more just that just through the process of creating, it's evolved and it's changed. And that's a good thing. Like it's not necessarily like I'm not complaining about that. I think that's just kind of how art works, really. But also like you're saying, where it's kind of like, oh, this is vastly different from what I had in mind, but that's okay. I'm gonna keep going with this. And yeah, I always find that quite fun. Really, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, just go where the pieces take you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the way. Yeah, perfect. So, the next question is by The Motion of Stop Motion, and he asks, how do you get inspiration for your own mocks? Okay, the question was in the show. Never mind. So, Mitch, how do you get inspiration for your mocks?
Yeah, so again, that kind of just depends on the mock that I'm building. A lot of my mocks, I think the first time I was on BIS, I had this question, but
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think the first time I answered, I said like I kind of adapt things that I see in other like character designs, and it's like, oh, like the one guy I have has like a gun torso, and it's like, oh, that's in the show. His character has this torso that's a giant gun, so I'll try and build that. And I still sort of do that. I don't do that as much anymore, but
Okay.
that happens sometimes, and sometimes it's like I have these colors that I want to work with, because I find color very difficult to work with, more so than shape. So I had like a week where I was just grabbing pieces and I wasn't putting them together. I was just putting them next to each other. It's like, okay, how does like burnt orange look next to lime green and dark blue? And it's like, my favorite one that I found was the newest version of silver next to the new purple and azure.
Oh, yeah.
That color combination will blow you away. It is so good.
Okay, cool.
I started putting them up together, and I mean, it was one of those like 5-minute mocks.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm going to upload this. And then I just kept putting things onto it like, oh, I can make this better. I can make this better, blah, 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 blah. And then as I was building it, I realized I don't have enough azure pieces, and I had to change it to orange. So now it's silver, purple, and orange. And I don't like it as much, but yeah, it's still good. I wish I could have done the azure because it's just so gorgeous. But
Yeah.
you know, some mocks come from, back on topic, some mocks come from like, oh, here's this thing that I like, I want to try that, or here's this color scheme that I want to work with, I want to do that, or like, here's this kind of proportion, this kind of body shape, I want to build something like that. And I'm looking at my mocks to see if there's any other ideas, and I mean, just kind of stuff like that. It's all dependent on whatever I'm building. So
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm quite similar on that last statement of it's dependent on what I'm doing and building. It does change. I mean, like there's times I'll get in, like I think I said the story once somewhere that I was walking down the street once and there was like a leaf on the floor, and I got an idea to build a mock. It had nothing to do with the leaf on the floor. I just got an idea from that. So like sometimes it just pops into my head. But also looking around at my stuff to see what there was. I mean, there'll be times I'll get inspiration from like video games or movies and stuff. Or like TV shows. I'll be like, oh, I want to build specifically that, and I'll build specifically that. Like I will recreate that scene, or kind of recreate that character, or like the sort of aesthetic of this character or a specific thing about them, and go, oh, I want to adapt that to this mock. Or yeah, like for example, Skyrim tends to inform a lot of the castle stuff I build. So it'll be like, okay, well, I like this about that, I'm going to adapt this to my thing. And I don't necessarily always directly adapt something. Like it's quite rare for me to be like, I'm gonna build the cantina scene from Star Wars. It's like, I'll build my own cantina because that sounds more fun. That kind of stuff. Yeah, mainly like I guess just from things around me that'll inspire me. Like TV shows and movies or pictures. Pictures always inspire me. That tends to be what I do. Is like I'll come up with the idea and then it'll be like, let me go Google pictures of that. And then I'll find a bunch. Be like, ooh, cool. Okay, yeah, that I can put that into Lego and da-da-da. So pictures help me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you were saying with like directly adapting something, I agree. I don't like doing kind of like a one-to-one because then you have like those fine details that you kind of want to get right.
Yeah.
And that, like I work on a smaller scale, and that can be a headache. So
for sure, yeah, because I mean, go on.
Well, I like the general idea of something, and then it's like, okay, how can I use the parts I have and build around those while still getting that main idea across? Like you said, why build the cantina scene from A New Hope specifically when you could just build a cantina?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. Because, there's been times where I've specifically wanted to build, like there was one time I wanted to build the Battle of Kashyyyk from Revenge of the Sith. I spent ages studying the scene, studying reference pictures, studying concept art, studying what other people had made, their own battles of Kashyyyk and da-da-da-da. And as I was building it, I was getting very like weighed down in like, I want to make sure this is 100% right and da-da-da-da. And to a degree that's fun because like you set out to do that and you want to do that. But yeah, I get more joy out of like, I'll build my own thing. Because often as I'm building, I'll be like, what if I did this? And I would find that when I was building the Kashyyyk, it was like, I could do that, but that's not accurate and that's not in the scene, so I won't. And it's like, that would have been really fun. I wish I did put that in, Yeah, that sort of stuff. The next question is by Tesla Effect, and he asks if you could bring any Lego theme back, which would it be, and how would you do it in order for it to be successful and profitable again? Obviously, Tesla Effect actually works for Lego, and this is him actually asking so that he can in fact do this.
Yeah, I can't say I know how the modern toy market works, so I can't say for sure it would be successful.
Yeah.
But if there's one Lego theme I would want back, I would go with Vikings. Very, very short-lived theme, very memorable when it was the first time around. I think if I were going to bring it back, I would brand it as like the new castle theme. Because like sometimes I'm talking to system builders and I'll ask like, so is Vikings a castle theme? And they don't quite know how to answer that sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think I would if I brought it back, I'd say definitively like, yes, this is the new castle theme. We'll make castles for this theme, but I'd also mix it with my personal favorite wave of the castle sets, which is the fantasy era. With the trolls and the dwarves and the skeletons and those. So I'd make a fusion of that, and I would want that, like, you have like dragons and trolls and other Norse mythology creatures.
Yes.
And I know that, and Lego's been doing more narrative stuff, like your Ninjago and Nexo Knights and stuff. So I'd probably do that. Like, I think more castle AFOLs would be more receptive to Vikings as a castle theme than, say, Nexo Knights.
Yes, for sure.
So
that's
what I'd do.
You are speaking my language, good sir. I was gonna say Exoforce because I always say Exoforce. I would love to see that again, especially with a couple of the mech sets that I bought recently. Some of them have been hitting me hard with nostalgia with how Nexoforce. Did I just say Nexoforce? That's the theme I want. Nexoforce, Nexo Knights.
I mean, absolutely, I'll take Nexoforce.
It actually would be pretty cool, to be honest.
Yeah. I almost said Exoforce too. I almost said that.
But because I always say Exoforce, I was going to say I would want a castle theme because it's been a little while. Technically, I feel that our last castle theme was Nexo Knights, so I do feel it might be a little bit before we get a proper, like, traditional castle theme. But I'm with you. I would want the fantasy era castle, so the skeleton army or the goblin army, like that era, because that was definitely my favorite castle era, I think. And in terms of what you were saying about the Viking stuff, like, I definitely agree with you that Vikings is a little hard to classify as a castle theme. I think it's because AFOLs really want, like, your typical castle, like your your good guy knights versus your bad guy knights, whether those bad guy knights are like a different like race, like if it's a fantasy era race or if it's just like, you know, evil knights. Yeah, that's whatever. Whereas like Vikings was more set in a kind of different era or a different part of the world and and so as a result, it's a little bit harder to kind of like 100% say it's castle. But I definitely think if, like you said, you brought it back and you marketed it in terms of, yeah, this is the new castle theme, and you included stuff like minifigures of like trolls or other kind of fantasy characters or races or animals and stuff with your dragons and with your cool like, you know, castles and things like that, I think people would be all over that. And I for sure would be all over that. I would love that. Like I thoroughly enjoyed Vikings as well. So it would be cool if they did something like that. Or even if it was some kind of like crazy, like similar to Nexo Knights in terms of it not being in set in the real world, but it's inspired by things. It'd be interesting if it was like Vikings versus Knights or something like that. And it was some kind of weird mesh of multiple themes or something, and there's like dragons and other things. I think that'd be cool. It'd be interesting if they kind of did what they did with elves, but with more like typical castle. That could be cool.
Yeah, I would like something like that too. And like you said that Nexo Knights was like kind of the new almost replacement of castle.
Yeah.
And you said like the next one will probably be more traditional. I'm 100% guaranteed the next castle will be a classic castle thing, because
yeah,
as far as I can tell, castle faithfuls hated Nexo Knights. Like they,
yeah,
and I can't say for sure because I've never been a big castle person, but it seemed to me that the people I've talked to that didn't like Nexo Knights, similar to Galador, they kind of saw it as something that it wasn't, rather than looking at it for what it was.
100%, yes.
So like, because Nexo was very sci-fi,
yes,
and you just, those colors and those like really specialized pieces just don't go into a castle, you know.
Yeah.
So with it kind of seemed like it was a commercial failure that it was. I think they're gonna, or at least a critical failure. I think they're gonna go back to more of a traditional castle-based theme.
I would say that they would too. Yeah, because I definitely agree with you. As a System AFOL castle fan, there were days where I'd look at Nexo Knights and be like, this isn't typical castle, like, I want my normal castle. But there would be other days where I would look at Nexo Knights as what it was. And like I even have some Nexo Knight sets. And for what it is, it was actually a pretty good theme. And there was some really good stuff in it. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think people did to some degree look at it as, yeah, what it wasn't. Yeah. But hey, it lasted 3 waves, which is pretty good for a non-licensed theme. So yeah, I'm happy that it did that, at least. That is pretty good.
Yeah. And like I was mentioning earlier at Brick Fair, like there's those big elves castles that I was seeing.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen people do that with Nexo Knights, like make these big.
Yeah.
Like, if people were upset that it wasn't like a traditional classic castle line, then like turn it into one, you know, like use those pieces and make it that way. And like,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be like, oh, classic castle fans are stuck up and don't know what they want. Like I'm not trying to say that. But,
no.
Like I feel like the people I have heard that didn't like it, I feel like they haven't given it the chance.
Sure.
So actually, I went looking to see if anyone had actually done that, of like making more of a classic castle scene with Nexo pieces, and I only found one. I'm gonna send it to you.
Yeah, cool.
It's kind of a little small like section of a castle wall. It's got like these little robots in it, and like it's got the nice blue and orange, and like there's like a little cannon rotating turret for the castle, and you can see like a little goblin creature on the bottom. I didn't follow Nexo that strongly, so I don't know what everything is. But this thing, it's called Nexo Recon Hub. Without getting too much into it, because we already did our mocks, but I wish I could have seen more like this, because I couldn't find any others that were quite like it.
Yeah. I've seen this. I saw. I 100% agree with you. I absolutely love this build. I've pored over this image a few times actually. It is gorgeous. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm genuinely surprised more people haven't done stuff like this. I've actually seen the reverse. I've seen someone do classic space Nexo Knights. So they used the color scheme of Nexo Knights and the characters of Nexo Knights and then applied it to a more classic space look. And that was really fun and really cool. But I quite like this aesthetic and this look of making it look very, very castle-like. It's really cool. And it almost has a slight video game look to it to some degree. I love it. But I'm with you on that. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, and I see more more elves type castles and stuff. And similarly, I heard an argument where people were talking about mini dolls and how they don't like them. And it's like, it seemed kind of silly to make a whole new figure when there's already the minifig, you know, and that has such a history, and there's like, they're already so modular and they're compatible. But the mini dolls are like, people were complaining that like, they're like the size is weird. There's not a lot of them. They're just kind of like, there's only like a handful of characters. They're not as generic as the minifigs, so you can't use them in as many things. And again, I'd say the same thing of like, well, if there's no precedent of how to use them, start making one. You know?
Yeah.
Like if you don't like that the mini dolls aren't compatible with how you're building, then you need to make a new system that's based around mini dolls.
Yes.
So, and that's like a great way of expanding the medium, because a lot of people complain about castle being kind of stale. So like maybe make elves themed castles or like friends themed cities. Like build off of that, and then you'll have that expansion of the medium.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that 100%. Yeah. No, that would be a great idea. I guess if I like it so much, I should probably do that because, all right, you've inspired me. I'll do it. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And I mean, like to some degree, we've seen that with Bionicle as well, of how, you know, we don't have any construction line toys at all. And, you know, there's kind of been a resurgence of Galador to some degree. And it's kind of that thing of like, you know what, in hindsight, this actually wasn't so bad. So let's celebrate this, and let's continue to build in this theme and explore it and everything. Yeah, so there's no reason that couldn't also happen with Castle, with doing that, like applying it to Nexonites or applying it to something else. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that Galador analogy. I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah. If there's no new, you're right. If there's no new construction, we have to go to something that we didn't give a chance, and that was Galador.
Yeah.
I was not a quote unquote believer in Galador until this last year, and like anytime you'd see it, it was like that's cute. It's a Galador piece.
Yes.
And then going to Brick Fair 2018 and just seeing the sheer amount that there was, and like the love that people had for it, especially the actor from the show, Matthew Ewald. I mean, he was just like, he was pouring his heart out to everyone, and he'd look on the tables around him, and it was a big display, and he would just like, he'd go up to everything and he'd like picking them up and like, oh, and look, you can do this, and like, look at this scorpion thing that uses all the Euripides stabs as like legs, and he was just losing his mind over it.
That's so cool.
It was so infectious.
Yes.
And like when you see the cool things you can do with just Galador pieces alone, it was really inspiring to go back and like pick up your pieces, even if they weren't Galador, just like pick up pieces and make something new, just seeing these Galador ones.
Yes.
And then when you saw the ones that would combine Galador with other construction pieces, that was really, really interesting, because not a lot of construction used ratchet joints. You know, it was mostly ball and socket, like Hero Factory and Bionicle, but the ratchet joints provide a bit of a challenge, but when you make it work, people are really, really impressed by it. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. It's because I've had conversations with some people about Galador and kind of the resurgence and everything, and the way we were talking about it, we were saying how to some degree we were a bit confused initially, because it's kind of like, what is this? Is this a joke? Like, why are people so obsessed with Galador suddenly? Like, I'm really confused. And it was kind of a thing of like, I don't believe it. Like, it felt like I don't know, it felt like a joke or something to some degree. And then as like that big Brick Fair collab happened with Galador and everything, and as more mocks of it came, eventually it was like, oh no, like this is a thing, like this is actually really awesome. And yeah, like you're saying, it was infectious to some degree. It's like, yeah, I want to do some stuff with Galador as well. Like, yeah, why not? And I mean, I've not used Galador yet in anything, but at least the 2 Galador sets that I now own as a result of that sort of excitement over it, it has been pretty cool. It's been like, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, I do want to use these. Like, these pieces are interesting. You know, maybe a few years ago I would have been like, no, I'm good. But now I'm like, no, like, yeah, I want to use these. I want to explore these and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Galador stuff is, because like you said, when it started, I thought, yeah, this is just kind of a fad. It'll blow over, and I mean, I'm sure it will probably pretty soon. It's been very, very nice to see people kind of exploring it. And I think maybe what made people think it was kind of a joke was that Eurobricks held the Galador contest and they announced it on April 1st. So people weren't sure if this was like, is this real? Because it's Galador and it's kind of been, we've all kind of looked at it as a joke, and now it's April Fool's Day. Is this a real contest?
Yeah.
And they had to like make several follow-up posts where they're saying like, no, this is real. We just timed it poorly. And then from there, it was announced that Matthew Yule was going to go to Brick Fair.
Yeah.
And then Nick Voss, he was going to bring all the just a suitcase full of Galador pieces for anyone who wanted to build. It was a free build there.
Cool.
And if I remember correctly, I heard a story. I don't know how true it is, but I heard a story that like the day before Brick Fair was going to start up, like for displayers, they still didn't have a table for Galador, even though it was listed on the site.
Uh-huh.
And like people running it asked the people who were in charge of setting up, like, where's the Galador table? Like, people are coming tomorrow. And the people who were instructed to set it up said, like, wait, were you serious?
Oh, wow.
So, like, Galador almost didn't have its section because no one believed it was going to happen.
Oh, wow.
So.
Huh. Well, I'm glad that it did. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah, awesome. Well, speaking of Brick Fair VA, that leads us very nicely into the next question, which is by Kojo Creations, and he asks, will you ever go to Brick Fair VA? Well, you've already been, but do you think you're going to be going this year or next year or the years of the future?
I booked my hotel registration 2 days ago.
Nice.
This year.
Nice.
So, I will be there.
Awesome. Good to hear. As for me, that is 100% on the top of my list of conventions I want to go to. However, it is very expensive to fly to Australia, to America, and it's a very long flight, and it's also very bad timing. It's normally on the cusp of when I have to start university, so it's just bad timing, which is a pain because, like I said, I want to go so bad. But the good news is, if I'm going, this year is probably the most likely that I will be. So I'm not going to confirm anything yet because I don't want to get hype about it, and then it's like, oh no, actually I lied, guys, I can't. But if I will this year, it would be the most likely that I would be going. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah, keep me informed.
I will, because I would be very excited to go into, especially because it's kind of the place where a lot of Bionicle people meet. Because I'm correct in saying that last year at Brick Fair, Bionicle was the largest sort of thing there. Like there was like 500 people, not 500 people, like 500 mocks or something of Bionicle there, or something like that, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Bionicle. I know that's the largest convention for Bionicle.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers. I know that because last year I was there. I went there a day late just because I had summer classes. Mm-hmm. The first day they ran out of tables for Bionicle mocks.
Oh, wow.
So when I got there the second day, they had to take tables away from like the steampunk section to give it to more Bionicle stuff.
Wow.
And only then, and it was like people barely fit.
Yeah.
So.
Fantastic. Okay, wow.
It was definitely big. I don't know the numbers, but yeah, it was big.
Cool. Okay, yeah. But yeah, I mean, for exactly that, the fact that it is kind of that hub of Bionicle, that's 100% why I would love to go. I'm very excited by it. And yeah, if I do end up going, like you said, keeping you informed, I'll of course let you know as soon as I do, and I'll be sure to put out like a thing on the channel or something being like, hey guys, I'll be there. It will not be a secret and I'll just suddenly appear on the day. Like I'll very much advertise it.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know. I'll save you a spot next to me.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. I'm very excited by that. But if I do confirm it, it would be reasonably soon that I confirm it. I'd want to lock that in relatively soonish. But again, I have to check the dates and I have to sort of see if like it's logistically possible and all that sort of stuff. But I'd be very keen because it's, like I said, it's up there for things I really want to do. For sure.
This year, I think normally it's like the first week of August, or the first 5 days of August.
Oh.
But this year it's going to be July 31st to August 4th.
Oh.
I don't know why exactly. But I know that is
confirmed.
Plan.
That's the dates.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good news because, like I said, that week was like the first week back at uni, so that might make it a lot more possible, guys. So that's really good news. Okay, fantastic. Okay, again, I'm not going to confirm anything yet, but that very much raises the chances. So that's really cool. Okay, all right.
There's a really, really good barbecue restaurant, like in the same like strip mall as the convention center.
Oh yeah.
And I don't remember the name of it, but like, oh, the food there. Oh my goodness. It's like the best barbecue sauce ever.
Heck yeah, okay.
It's so good.
Okay.
So if you come,
yes.
if you come, we are going to this place.
Okay. This is
first day.
Okay, okay. Yes, let's do it. Sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
I'm glad
best brisket sandwich.
I'm glad we're making plans now, even though nothing's confirmed. I'm still.
Yeah.
I love this. This is great.
I know.
No. Oh, sweet. Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, heck, like the difference in American food versus Australian food. Like, oh, you guys are such like, oh, I mean, I don't know. There's times I'm glad I don't live in America because I'm like, man, I'd be double my weight if I lived there. Like your food is so tasty and so cheap. Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah, I had $15 on me in Merca when I was there for Brickworld a couple of years ago. And I went into this like restaurant and I was speaking to my friend and I'm like, dude, I only have $15 on me. Like, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to need to borrow some money. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, where can you buy food for $15? And he's like, here. And I'm like, what? And I looked over the menu and like nothing was below, like everything was below $15. And I was like, oh, right. And the reason I'm freaking out about that is because in Australia, to find food that's cheaper than $15 is like very difficult. I mean, like a proper meal, like obviously you go buy like a banana or something, but like, you know, that is like most, like to go have a meal, it's like $20 most of the time. So yeah, it's like, I don't know if you have it in your neck of the woods, but in Chicago, there's a restaurant called, a cafe restaurant, I suppose, called Steak and Shake.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have one or two.
It's kind of like a 50s diner kind of thing.
Yeah, I've been to one.
Yeah, it's a great place. Freaking, you could buy like, I don't know, like I remember going there a lot because of how cheap they were when Brickworld was on. It's I don't know, I remember spending like less than $10 and I got like, I don't know, like a milkshake, burger, fries, like a good amount of food. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Brick Fair. That'll be fun. Hopefully I can go. Again, no confirmation, but yeah. Sweet. So that's it for those questions. That's it for the podcast, really. We're almost at the 2-hour mark, but I'll be editing that down a fair bit. So it's be a bit of a longer one, but still a good one. So hopefully you were listening to this as you were building, because I know a lot of people do that. So hopefully whatever you've been building has been fun. Send me some pictures of what you build. I always like seeing that. But yeah, that's it for this podcast. Mitch, thank you so much for being on. Great to chat with you. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
Well, first, thanks for having me. It is always fun to talk.
I'm glad you had fun.
I'm basically on everything that people use for Lego stuff. Like obviously Flickr. My name is like, it's CZQ. It has some underscores before and after. Then I'm on Instagram. That's Mitch Henry CZQ. Mm-hmm. I'm on Twitter, and I think that's just CZQ, but it has like a bunch of numbers that I don't remember, so I'll give you the link for that.
Cool.
So those three are like the ones you'll be able to find me the easiest. Like Flickr and Instagram is all like final pictures, and Twitter I kind of use as, sometimes I post work in progress pictures, sometimes I post other various things that may or may not be related to Lego, and I usually post final stuff there as well. So
sweet, sounds great. Yep. Cool. Again, like you said, I'll put all the links of that in the description. So if you want to check him out, that's where you can, and please do, because he builds great stuff like we saw in this episode. So yeah, thanks again, man. I'll see you all in the next BIS podcast.